With the fall 2019 season coming to an end, having really only one or two isekai out of like 6 being actually somewhat interesting, we turned towards winter 2020 in hopes of experiencing some refreshing new takes on the genre. And as much as I'd like to tell you that it looks like that we'll be getting some exciting and riveting new entries, unfortunately, I can't. There really just aren't that many to begin with. Sure, there's definitely the new anime that will fall nicely into the fantasy genre, but surprisingly, there really aren't too many new isekai this time around. But as we always do anyway, let's take a look at each of the new fantasy or isekai anime coming out next season and see if there's any worth keeping an eye on. Then feel free to let me know in the comments which ones you're looking forward to the most. Also, before we get started, don't forget that you can check out my isekai brand apparel through the store link in the description. Now, let's talk about some new anime. First up is Studio Silverlink's adaptation of the light novel, I Hate Getting Hurt So I Put All My Skill Points into Defense, which, just as all fantasy novel names seem to do these days, pretty much sums up the plot of the story. It's not really an isekai, or even remotely close, but it does take place in a fantasy-type virtual reality MMO video game creatively titled New World Online. Our main character is a girl who doesn't really play video games at all. But when she's invited by her friend to try out New World Online, she figures she might as well give it a go. Unfortunately, no, she doesn't get trapped in this video game. Instead, because she's completely unfamiliar with how games like these work, she builds her character into the heaviest tank build that you can imagine, putting every single one of her distributable status points into defense. As you would expect, this makes her character sluggish and unable to do anything other than literally soak up damage. However, from this unique build, she gains a counter skill that allows her to kill enemies in a single hit. So the story basically revolves around this girl who went full tank and the adventures she'll go on while using her special build. It's pretty much if Naofumi got placed into a video game where all the other players weren't complete dicks. Next up, we have a fantasy anime that looks to be the most anticipated of the season, Plunderer. When I went to Anime Expo in the summer, the Kadokawa booth was pushing this series pretty heavily, so I expect it to have at least a bit of potential. The premise does seem rather interesting though. In a post-apocalyptic world, every human is branded by a count, a number that represents an aspect related to their life. That aspect could be anything from the number of steps a person has walked to even the number of times someone has said a specific word to you. The thing is, the higher a person's count, the greater their social rank, meaning it's best to attempt to maintain your count as high as possible. The other thing is that once your count hits 0, you'll be dragged down into a deep abyss of nothingness. The story itself will follow a girl who's inherited a mission from her mother to find the legendary Red Baron. While on this quest, she'll come across a swordsman who appears to be an anomaly within this world ruled by counts, and of course he'll turn out to be extremely OP. But I think it's the count element of this show that should make for an anime worth checking out next season. Straying away from the action fantasy now, we have Studio Satellite's adaptation of the manga Somali and the Forest Spirit. This is a world where humanity is a race on the brink of extinction. Instead, the world is ruled by all sorts of mythical creatures like beastmen, goblins, or spirits, with humans sitting at what I can only assume to be the bottom of the food chain, resulting in them having been hunted throughout the ages. One day, a young stray human child would wander into a forest and encounter its guardian spirit, a golem who would then go on to take her in. The two would grow close to each other, eventually coming to a relationship that could be likened to that of a father and a daughter. Knowing that she couldn't live in the forest with him forever, this golem would abandon his role as the forest guardian and go on a journey with this girl to seek out other humans. Now, judging from the preview, it looks like it could possibly end up becoming a rather emotional story. Nothing like that Uchi Musume show. The journey sounds like it could be presented in a compelling manner, so I'm interested to see how these unlikely acquaintances will traverse a world where literally every other species is against them. Bringing it back to the theme of video games, we have the anime adaptation for the fantasy light novel Infinite Dendogram. This series is the one that I'm personally looking forward to the most. Well, aside from ReZero anyway. But what we have here is a story set in the near future of 2043, in a world that has just been exposed to the first successful full-dive virtual reality MMORPG called Infinite Dendogram, a game that can supposedly perfectly simulate the 5 senses while at the same time offer infinite possibilities. If you wanted to take the standard fantasy route, then you can build your character to become a swordsman or a mage. But let's say you wanted to take a more off-meta futuristic route, then you could go ahead and build your character around guns and mechs. I guess they really weren't kidding when they said it was a world with infinite possibilities. Anyway, the story itself will follow a college freshman who had just been able to purchase the game and is now trying it out for the first time. We get to experience the world of Infinite Dendogram through him as he discovers what exactly there is to do. So basically it's an anime version of a Let's Play. Next we have the anime adaptation of the manga Drifting Dragons, a CG-heavy anime that's set in a world filled with dragons and the people whose job it is to hunt them. Those people form a crew on an airship that traverses the skies in search of dragons. Why do they hunt these dragons? Well, not because they're threatening the world or anything, but because they're a valuable source of oil, medicine, and apparently food. So they're basically just big game hunters. To be honest, I'm not quite sure what to expect from this, but it's probably a show that I won't be going out of my way to watch. What it does though is the new original anime by Studio NAZ called ID Invaded. Now, I'm pretty sure this doesn't fall into either the isekai or fantasy genre, but because there's no information on it, I still can't be entirely sure. So instead I'll just briefly mention it as something that has piqued my interest. Honestly though, even after watching 2 previews, I still don't have the slightest idea what this anime will even be about. If you want to, then you can check it out for yourself using the links in the description. Then go ahead and come back and tell me what you think. Studio Mappa is bringing us a rather strange looking dark comedy fantasy called O Hetero. And when I say strange, I mean the world itself just looks absurd. The story is set in a dystopian district known as Hole, a place filled with all sorts of supernatural and otherworldly beings. As such, this area doesn't follow the same rule of law as the rest of the world. Here, the strong set the rules, and the strong are more times than not people who are capable of using magic. These magic users treat pretty much everyone else like insects, killing others as if they were merely squashing a bug. Only a few individuals are actually capable of challenging their power, one of which is our lizard-looking main character. Cursed with this reptile-like appearance, he hunts down magic users in order to find clues on what he really is. The only reason he can challenge them is because he has this unique attribute of being immune to magic. Even with that, he doesn't take this journey alone. He'll come across other weird and mysterious denizens of this hole who will work with him in order to take out these magic users. Now, from what I've read, O Hetero presents a very unique setting to its audience, one that's apparently unlike anything that we've ever seen before. So perhaps going into this anime with an open mind will be the best way to enjoy it. The next couple of anime I actually mentioned in a recent video, so I'll try to go over them quickly in order to avoid being redundant. First was Sorcerer Stabber Orphan, an adaptation of the 1994 fantasy novel and a remake to the original 1998 anime. Essentially, our protagonist was a highly skilled sorcerer student who dropped out in order to search for his sister-like friend who became a monster. He's on a mission to save her, while others are on the hunt to kill her. This adventure will inevitably lead to other things that will expand this fantasy world further. The other anime was Ishuzoku Reviewers, which, according to the comments on my last video, is just about a couple of guys who go around reviewing some nice places. So feel free to interpret that however way you want. But actually, even though it may have a lot of fan service and ecchi, apparently it's not bad at showing how different races would interact if placed into a fantasy setting that allows them to peacefully coexist. Anyway, those were the brand new series. Of course, there's also some returning ones that you may not be aware of. The 3rd season of A Certain Scientific Railgun will finally be continuing the series that ended back in 2013. Then there's the adaptation for the Madoka Magica side story called Magia Record. This one based off the events of the mobile game Madoka Magica Gaiden. The cast will feature some brand new magical girls, but also have some of the original. Well, the ones that are left alive anyway. Everyone's favorite chibi fanservice anime will also be continuing in January. Isekai Quartet Season 2 returns with an even bigger cast since it now features the main party from Shield Hero, and in the latest trailer we got our first looks at Chibi Naofumi, Raptalia, and Philo, alongside some other characters like Ainz's Death Knight and the Sword Saint Reinhard. I'm not gonna lie, it's probably my favorite thing in the world to see all these characters interact, and I'm sure Naofumi will bring yet another unique dynamic to the show. Now we just need to get Seiya in for Season 3. Isekai Quartet isn't the only taste of Re:Zero that we'll be getting next season though. As I mentioned in my last news video, Re:Zero Season 1 will be getting a fully recut version that will begin airing January 1st. And when I say recut, I mean hour-long episodes airing every week until April. Episodes that will recover the events of the first season with a bit of brand new footage sprinkled in. So it's pretty clear that they're trying to properly set us up for when Re:Zero Season 2 finally begins. And because I'm such a fan of this series, alongside the new Re:Zero Season 1, I'll be doing a cut content to complement it. just in case some of the even finer details of the series get left behind. Last but not least is the continuation to Fate Grand Order Babylonia, which if you haven't been keeping up with, you really should, because all that gacha money that they've been getting from their mobile game has been put right into making some pretty dope action sequences in the anime. And if you're not sure what this show is, then you can check out my Fate Grand Order videos that I've been uploading for the past few months. This will help you understand the series a little bit better. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Really, the only isekai from next season is the re-airing of Re:Zero Season 1 and Isekai Quartet. But there are a couple strong-looking contenders in the fantasy genre, hopefully with Infinite Dendogram. And if none of these do well, then I guess you can always check out Darwin's Game or Pet. Now, before I go, once again, let me know in the comments which ones you plan on watching first. Also, don't forget that you can get my isekai apparel through the link in the description. Now, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time, ciao!